So before we bring up our next guest speaker tonight, I have a little announcement that Diane Locke has resigned from the board. She's going to be moving a little bit over the border to Westchester on us. And our longtime favorite Hawks chairperson, sorry Kevin, it's not you, Virginia Gallagher has resigned. So the reason I'm bringing it up right now is so Jimmy knows there's still a seat at the board here for him. All right, everyone knows the New York City Controller, Scott Stringer.
Andrew, it's nice to be back. We really tried to time this so I would not follow Jimmy back up tonight. So, I mean, come on. But I do want to say to you that there are great elected officials in the city. I work with a lot of them. But there is nobody who cares more deeply about a community and who has done such an amazing job both as a district manager for so long and as a member of the New York City Council for 12 years. I wish everybody was like you. Give him a big round of applause. But I also know he's not going anywhere because he's got it in him, right? It's why we're all here tonight. We can't help ourselves, and Jimmy's one of those. So you're going to be back here, I know, and doing so much great work for the city. And I want to congratulate Assemblyman Marchigioni to take your seat. I think it's going to be a very exciting time. We serve together in Albany, and I want to just say to all of you, thank you for re-electing me. I got 801,332, but no, I'm just and so I wanted to say I'm very excited about the second term. I'm very excited about serving as your controller. And I really wanted to come by and just tell all of you that we're going to be doubling down. That the aggressive approach we've taken to root out waste and fraud, we're going to continue to do this in an even stronger way. We're going to continue to hold City Hall accountable. We're going to continue to audit, whether it's shelters or missing computers in schools. We are going to do the work that you expect of us. And part of that is about also thinking long-term about the fiscal health of the city. You know, one of the things I can tell you now, as 4 years as controller, the work that you do does not always see, you don't always see those results immediately. And we have to plant the economic seeds of tomorrow. We have to start doing it now. So if we're going to really create small business opportunity, we have to start really breaking down the agency bureaucracy right now. And if we're really going to be able to have a true transformational city, we have got to be extra focused on making sure our kids have every advantage when it comes to education. The high-tech economy is there for their asking. But if we don't have the science teachers, if we don't begin to build out the public school system, and it starts with the bureaucracy at the DOE, our kids are going to miss this. And we can't let that happen. They're too important to us, and that is why we do this work. We don't do this for us. We do this to protect our parents and grandparents, but we really do this for the children that are coming our way. And this community board has always recognized that long-range community-based planning is the only way City Hall will listen. It's the only way we can accomplish things. So I've always believed as a borough president that, and as a former community board member when I was very, very young, I've always believed that the people who really know things are the 50 people out of 150 or 200,000 people who come and serve on community boards. You really represent tens of thousands of people each. And some people can't get here because of family situations. Some people think you're doing it for them. Some people don't even know this meeting exists, but you do. And that's why the trees are planted, that's why the housing proposals are amended, that's why the schools are better. It's because of the community boards. And I hope in the coming years you will indulge me and allow me from time to come here and report on our activity, tell you what we're up to, and also hear results from you. And one of the things I just want to leave you with is the secret of our auditing. You know, people say to me all the time, how did you know to audit that? So I would say, well, you know, I sleep, I wake up in the middle of the night, and no, I don't. It's the people in the community who come to you and say, will you take a look at this for us? Or can you do an audit? You can't always do an audit on every issue, but sometimes we do things and someone comes and we start, and that's exactly how we audited the homeless shelters. People said, there's a problem, we're seeing rats, we're seeing infestation. Can you take a look inside? And that's how we were able to clean up so many of the shelters for the kids who were sleeping in the shelters every night. That's the work we do. Someone said to me, you know, my kid doesn't have a computer in their classroom. And I said, well, of course they have a computer in the classroom. There are computers in every classroom. It's a controller. No. There are no computers in these classrooms. We then did an audit and found in just 6 schools they were missing 1,500 computers. 1,500. That was a sample. You know, we don't do every school, we audit these samples. A few months ago, we go back to see where the computers are. Now I find 5,000 missing computers. So now there's another 5,000 kids that don't have an opportunity to be part of the high-tech economy. But the question is, what do we do with that information? So we figured out why they're missing computers. Because the DOE doesn't track these computers. They have no idea how many computers they have in the system and where they are at any given time. Now, the reason I mention the school computers is because that's the most important tool a kid has today, right? If you don't have a good computer, you are not part of this economy someday. So this is why the work matters, and this is why I'm so grateful for your help. So I just wanted to come by and congratulate Jimmy, welcome the Assemblyman, and if you have 1 or 2 questions, I'll be happy to take them. But thank you very, very much. This is an amazing community. Thank you.
Thank you for coming here. I hope the next 4 years is going to be, you know, vocal and more transparent with your audits. But I would like to ask for a requested
You haven't been
audit.
shy?
Huh?
I haven't been shy.
Well, I don't know about that, but you know.
So
I'm
again,
hoping to see the next 4 years a little bit more of a push, okay? You have it. Let's see more action from the controllers. Very important position.
yes, sir.
But I would like to see a audit of the business improvement districts. For years, they have not received one independent audit from the controller's office. I understand there's independent accountants that review their books, but considering they're being assessed and the taxes are being collected by the city, I think you have the authority to go into that non-for-profit entities and to review their services. They are on completely no oversight. So I would love to see that, and hopefully before election time comes around. Thank you, sir.
Point well taken, and you know something, let me go back and see where our audits are with the bids.
Hi, sorry, I was late this evening. My name's Amanda Ramawi. I work at the New York Lawyers for the Public Interest. I also use Accessoride, that's why I was late tonight. We had a meeting with your office a few months ago because we read your audit on Accessoride and how they had 73% of the time where they were doctoring the information
Yes.
and lying about customers being late or no showing, which is awesome. And we want to keep having meetings with you and having meetings with the mayor. We had a meeting with the DOT earlier today, and Accessoride was there. And they're like, yeah, you know, we're trying to improve the service, we're trying to improve the ride, but you know, you're still going to be on there for 3 or 4 hours. Except it doesn't work for me because I work at a law firm and I'm going to law school and I have a life and a boyfriend and a family and things to do. And I think the misconception with people saying, oh, Accessoride is for you people. Guess what? Anybody can join the disability club. I've only been an amputee 4 years. So it's not like, oh, it's just you people, it's all of us.
Well,
because we all get old.
You make a very good point. You know, we are all temporarily able-bodied.
Absolutely.
And at any given moment, people's lives will change. Let me just tell you 2 things we're doing. We have audited and investigated the lack of escalators and elevators in the transportation system of the MTA. We have called for action there, and as you know, we've made that public, working with disability groups. It is really unbelievable that somebody can go into an elevator who relies on that elevator to get onto the trains, and then 2 hours later goes to another station and the elevator doesn't work. You know what happens?
Or it's not there.
No longer don't exist.
Right, and sometimes it doesn't exist. So we are focused on that, and I don't want to talk about it too much publicly, but based on our conversations, our original audit, I'm not doing the check the box audit where, okay, we audited Accessoride. We are back in, and stay tuned.
Awesome.
Okay, we're coming back.
See it. Thank you.
Coming back.
Hi, thank you for coming. I don't know if it's up your alley, but I am so concerned with so many out-of-town places that people live in my community, and why is Pennsylvania in my block, Connecticut, and so forth and so on. And if you live in, have a plate from Pennsylvania, you should stay in Pennsylvania. You come visit us, but
You're tough.
living here. Oh, yes.
All right. I think what you're getting at, are those legitimate plates with residents?
Is there anything that can be done?
You know, let me figure out the Department of Finance and where we're at with that. It's not, right, illegitimate. Let me see where we're at with that. It's not an audit that we would do, but let me, you know, we'll take information.
Planting the seed.
Clearly. Sure. If you do not have a New York City plate, do not come to this community. I hear you, I hear you.
Gonna stay over.
This really is the most interesting community I've been to. Sir?
Good evening to everyone, community boards and activists and controller. MTA, we need more service, and for some reason they're still wasting money on nonsense, okay? On the weekends, they have this fast track and what have you. But during the course of the weekends, it's a nightmare to try to get to work and what have you, even 6, 7 in the morning. So what can be done about that? Since that would be up to your expertise.
Look, we've looked at the numbers now. Without going through the history that you know all too well, for those of us who came of age in the 70s and 80s, you know, we lived through our transportation system. My 8 train in Washington Heights was a roving crime scene, the graffiti, the whole transportation system was on the verge of collapse. Then people got involved and started to understand that you had to continue to invest in the system, both in terms of upkeep and also building it out as the city grew. Now we are facing, or the good news is we may get 9 million people living in our city, but we have a transit system that only has a capacity of 7.5 million. That's the first problem. We don't have enough capacity to deal with all the people who want to live in this great city.
Would it be an idea to cut the fare maybe? That could help a little bit, to stimulate things a little bit?
Nice try, but it's like a vodka thing, right? But here's the issue I want to just address to you very seriously. We have a short-term problem and a long-term problem. The short-term problem is we need $850 million to do the track repair and signal repair to get the trains moving. This is very critical to the city and very critical to our economy. I do support the LOTA plan, the Cuomo plan on the emergency side. I think the city should be participating. We need the mayor and the governor on the same page because we've got to get the emergency repairs done. We cannot have another summer of hell. We've got to be smart about this. And then we have to think about the long-term viability of our transportation system, which in order to run it could be up to $20 billion. So start thinking about ways that we can have a sustainable financial system, which is critical to the economy. Think about what happens on our trains if we can't build them out and do the repairs. Businesses will collapse and our economy will go down. And by the way, who are the people who get hurt in this situation? Well, it's people in the Bronx, it's people in Washington Heights, where I grew up, it's people in the boroughs who have limited transportation alternatives. So we should double down and demand of our state and city elected officials that they need to have a finance plan. Now, I have some ideas about passing the Transportation Bond Act. That's not the only idea, but this is very serious. We have to get through the short-term plan. I've said to the mayor, I think it's important that the city contributes. The money is there, it's critical, but we cannot have the politics back and forth because right now, escalators aren't working. elevators aren't working, the tracks are broken, the signals don't work, and people now send me pictures on off hours looking at the overcrowding issues, and it's unsustainable. You know, when I take my little kid on the train, I mean, it is just, you know, I can't put a 4-year-old in the middle of a train that is wall-to-wall people and run the risk that the kid's gonna get stuck for 45 minutes as a 4-year-old. It's just unbelievable. 20 years ago, 15 years ago, when we reinvested in the subway system, this was the greatest thing that happened. It corresponded with our economic boom in the city. We stopped giving money to the MTA, and look where we are now.
Thank you. Controller Stringer. My name is Lou Rocco. I'm the president of Westchester Square Civic. For the past 6 years, I've been an advocate for disabled. My father, who had died in the VA hospital, was going to be disabled after doing 30 years of service with the parks. I figured I would have him and be able to enter his park where he would be living with me. My question is that why are we not, with all these contracts, going and looking into why we're not doing anything for the disabled? We have a park that was in Westchester Square. They did nothing for the disabled. You're passing all these contracts. Westchester Square Library, no access for disabled. And it goes on and on and on. They're not abiding and going with the federal laws. You're passing these contracts, spending the money. When I seen this woman here, I applaud her for coming here. We're looking for services. We need someone to look into these contracts and find out why they're not taking care of them.
So
They
is it-
deserve the same rights as anyone. And even in this community court, I've seen so much discrimination where I brought in a woman who was disabled, had a thing, and they said, we don't understand what she's saying, she's stupid. And that's disgusting. And we need to stop this, and our new councilman needs to get on this. Whatever's out with the old is out, and that's deplorable what goes on. And we pay taxes and all. I'd like you to help us out.
So I will help you out. You know, before I was borough president, I was the former chair of the Task Force of People with Disabilities in Albany, and worked with a lot of communities and actually did the reports that showed the lack of accessibility in our government buildings, let alone private buildings. Here's what I need you to do. Contact us and start giving us examples, because then I can go in, look at the law, see if it complies, and that could be the start of something, okay?
I appreciate
So work
that.
with me on it.
Thank you.
I need your knowledge, you know, what's happening in Westchester Square.
Thank you, sir.
And we'll come over this way, and I know you got things to do, so.
Okay, I'm gonna piggyback off of both of them. I have a 30-year-old daughter that's in a coma, and I have her at home. I spoke to you when you came to Co-op City, but I have a new problem today. She has Medicaid and Medicare. She had Medicare as of June this year. Medicare requires her to take a swallow evaluation because she has a kangaroo feeding pump and she's fed through her tube. Everything goes through the feeding tube. I made an appointment last month and she couldn't go because there was no ambulance available. I called up again and made another appointment for December 14th. I can't get an ambulance earlier than 30 days. So I called today, was on the phone with medical answering service for 50 minutes. After 20 minutes, I got on the phone.
You and I have talked about this. Just call my office and we'll try to expedite it for you.
Okay.
You know, we've tried to do that before. I'm very committed to helping you. I praise you for, you know, just who you are, and we want to give you every service you're entitled to and more. So call my office, and you know, I know Joe and I is here and others. There's not a person who won't help you, and we'll try to get that done.
Okay,
I promise you,
thank you.
okay?
I'm Colonel William Chen. I've been a member of the board for maybe nearly 20 years, and I'm also reaching an age-old, 87 years old. Why can't we try to reenact, if you work in the city, pay the New York City income tax?
They should.
That's right. Why did we ever let them get away with it? You know, you're making all this money in the city and not contributing anything to the city fund. You need to include a lot of big income people.
One of the things that we've been able to do with the Department of Finance is we went borough to borough and made sure that the tax abatements and the housing tax abatements that were supposed to be paid, you know, benefit people who were not, who would be eligible for them. When people moved or died, the Department of Finance was still giving people the eligibility even though they had been deceased. So I continue to make sure that the Department of Finance does everything we can to make sure that that money is paid and that we hold people accountable to our taxes. People don't realize if you evade those taxes, we don't have the services for seniors and for our kids. So it is something serious, and people do pay and do contribute.
If they live in the city, they should pay the city tax.
Well, that's right, but that's,
I mean, if they work in the city and earn their income,
Living outside the
they
city.
should pay the city income tax.
and one of the things we lost with those folks in Long Island was the commuter tax, where people from Long Island, Connecticut, worked in our city, we paid their services, police, fire, sanitation, and they were supposed to leave a couple of bucks in the till so that we can protect them, especially after 9/11. And when we lost that commuter tax, do you know how much money we've lost in the city right now? Billions of dollars. It is outrageous. And we continue to send more money to the state and the federal government than we get back. And I won't even go through the proposed tax cut with you because it will blow your mind what is happening.
We called it already, but allow one more. We gotta move on with the meeting.
Sure. I've been living in the city for over 60 years, Mr. Stringer. I see the population boom is just incredible. If you look at Tokyo, Japan, I believe the population over there is over 10 million people living in the city. And what they've done is instead of investing on the roads in the past and highways, they were investing in trains. And if you look at some of the train systems now, it's just mind-boggling how far advanced they have become. I would think that the city of New York, being put in the same situation, will reach out to people who have experienced this problem in the past and maybe learn from them.
You would think, look, there are amazing transportation networks in cities across the globe. When people travel, and the first thing they come back and they say, I couldn't imagine that. Just go to Washington, D.C., and you see modern transportation systems. We have to do better here. The problem is that it was easier to stop investing in the system. The money was needed elsewhere. You could kick the can, well, we're not going to fund the MTA capital plan to its fullest. But you know what happened. That's not sustainable. We all woke up to a crisis now. And I just want to remind everybody, there's the short term and there's the long term. In the short term, we need $850 million now to fix this system. Because I can tell you, we've done this work. When we are talking to our constituents, friends and neighbors, the impact this is having in terms of lost wages, lost business, and people actually getting fired for being late from work. This is real. And I didn't just survey 20 people, right? We've surveyed thousands of people, and I'm not the only one. So help us move this. Work with Mark, work with the other elected officials. We all agree on this. Listen, you've been very generous with your time. I hope I've been able to answer questions. I look forward to coming back. Sorry I lost my voice, but it's very good to see all of you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so I think we heard from everyone we had to hear from. And at this point of the meeting, I'd like to close out public participation. So can I have a show of hands? Motion to close. Seconded by Tom. So carried. So before I hand over the mic to Matt Cruz, the district manager, I was waiting for Julian to show up to thank our vets. In November we have Veterans Day, and I was waiting for Julian to show up because he's one of the vets. I know, that's why I didn't do it at the beginning of the meeting. So I'd like for all our vets to stand up and give them a round of applause, please.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
At this point, Matt Cruz will give you the district manager's report.
Thank you, Chair. As you noticed, good evening, everyone. As you noticed, there is no BP representative, no Borough President's representative. They will subsequently tomorrow give their report, and I'll email also to the board members and as part of the minutes as well. There are things I've been focusing on since June, but one that is coming to a close is the New England Thruway in Co-op City. And I want to thank Ashley from Senator Bailey's office, as well as Senator Bailey, who called me personally about this issue. And on the northbound side, the gate from New England Thruway, I believe from Co-op City Boulevard to Barchester, the grass, the fencing was all fixed, litter was all picked up, and some shareholders of Co-op City were very thankful for that. So I want to thank Senator Bailey's office publicly for their help. I appreciate it. Secondly, I can confirm the good news today that Throgs Neck houses, the Randall Malcolm houses particularly, their boiler was broken for about a week. That's now been fixed as of today. So I've been working with Monique Johnson, who's not here, who's actually meeting with NYCHA at her Throgs Neck Residents Council tonight. So I want to thank Monique for letting us know and doing our part to reach out to NYCHA to get this done as quickly as possible for those residents. This week we just had our Throgs Neck Community Action Partnership Opioid Town Hall, and we had a great crowd out there, many questions, and many people who were certified to provide naloxones, that's sort of medication to help someone who is addicted, who's suffering from an overdose. That's a nasal spray that can help them recover. And many people showed, and I want to thank TNCAP for providing this town hall, Community Board 10. We actually helped do logistics and do our best outreach so that many young people understand that we're here to protect them as well. So I want to say thank you to TNCAP. Also, the councilman back on the left, but he funded an organization called Wildcat, and that's a nonprofit that does a lot of home cleanup. So in Throgs Neck and City Island and parts of Palmer Bay, there were a lot of vacant properties that there were high weeds in front, garbage. People noticed that there's a vacant property, so they'll dump litter on their sidewalks or porches. This organization comes and cleans it up. So I want to thank Councilman Rebecca as well. If anyone wants the addresses that we kind of cleaned up, please let me know. I'd be happy to share. And lastly, on October 24th, after the week of our full board in Co-op City, we met with Senator Klein, myself, a few of my board members, and some neighborhood representatives about 3250 Westchester Avenue. For those who don't know, that is a proposed 10-story building. We impressed upon the developers, and Senator Klein thankfully supported us on this endeavor, that this building, in our opinion, is much too high for this community. Yes. And across the street is a 6-story building, so we're wondering how this building could be approved. So at this point, it is in the buildings department's hands, and they're reviewing the zoning, and there should be an answer shortly. It's been a while since I've gotten one, but again, we impressed upon them that this is a building that we're going to continue to monitor, and the height of this building is, of course, not a characteristic of currently Pelham Bay. We want to make sure that we're there to support. And I thank Andy Bowler and Michelle Torioni, Pelham Bay taxpayers, for coming around and supporting us in this endeavor. And yet, in the interest of time, I want to close out my district manager report, so thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So we're going into our standing committee reports. First one is executive board. Now, everyone should have the minutes. Most of the minutes are self-explanatory. Just one thing I want to put in front of the board. It's not necessary, but for full disclosure, we voted for the additional hours. What happened was we were supposed to be looking at making Noreen Kilkenny, giving it 10 hours, and there was a little confusion to say, and that was partially my fault. So we voted in executive board to make her full-time, which is 35 hours, so we gave her another 5 hours. So I'm just, disclosing this to the board, and I'd like, a motion to support our move. So,
Second.
all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So any other part of when we went into executive session is about personnel matters, and again, Julian will tell you the same thing. We have a little bit more to discuss. No decisions have been made, finalized yet, and we're going to have another meeting on that very soon, a joint meeting with planning and budget and our executive board to try and come to a resolution on what we're gonna do with our budget. Okay, so at this point, I'm gonna pass the mic over to planning and